Good morning.
Oh, morning, everybody. Wasn't sure if I was on mute or not. Apologize if you could hear me groaning while I'm trying to figure it out.
We can hear you.
All right, very good. UIA meeting go okay?
Yeah, there wasn't any action to get rid of me, so that's good.
That's always a positive.
It went well. We kind of went through a lot of budget stuff. Some of the same stuff we'll cover in this meeting, but it was good. I think people were excited to see the budget where we landed last year and where we're proposing next year. So all good news. With the exception that the future of the bond market isn't great. I mean, things have been a little bit unstable, but we're getting some of these things wrapped up, and overall things were pretty great.
Good, sounds great. Kristen, we got a quorum on. Should we get started?
We need a little more for financial stuff. I don't know if you hear, Chris.
Sorry. We have a majority. Okay, we're good now.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Krista. All right, well, let's start in with welcome and introductions. Welcome, everybody. I understand we do have a quorum and that we just got finished with the UIA meeting. I see all the staff are here. So let's move on with item number 2, approval of the minutes. Anybody have any questions or a motion? While somebody's thinking about making a motion, I want to thank the other officers who ran the meeting last month while I was gone. Thanks for taking care of that in my absence.
Happy to do it, and I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, great. Who was that?
Jeff Lamson.
Jeff, thank you.
You got it.
And how about a second?
I'll second that.
All right, sorry, I didn't recognize that person either.
Jason Sant.
Jason, okay, very good. All in favor of approval of the minutes of February 14th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody opposed? Okay, I'm going to take that as a Zoom unanimous vote. Let's move on to item number 3, consider approval of resolution UT 22-01, appointment of Chief Financial Officer. Roger, I'll turn the time over to you.
Well, I'll just start this to say that opposing this motion doesn't mean that Laurie will stay with us any longer, although we would like that. Laurie has been phenomenal as our CFO at Utopia, and we definitely appreciate her. This has been the most busy few years we've had in the last few years here with just overall build and expansion of the network, but definitely on the financing side of bond issuances and the ratings and all the work that goes into those. So I hope we didn't drive her to retire earlier than she would have. I think she's liked it here, but she's certainly been busy, and she has been a phenomenal employee and friend to the organization. We're sad to see her go, but she's retiring. We are planning, we don't have a date and time picked yet, but we're planning to have an open house here to kind of just give a chance for people to thank her in person sometime next month. And anyways, with that, we do have to have a CFO here. We put a posting out a little while back, had a lot of very strong candidates come in, but there was one that was exceptionally strong. He had a very strong finance background, in addition, a lot of background with Utopia. So a friendly face in Jason Roberts, we have hired on, and well, we're in process here of appointing and confirming that. So on the agenda today would be to confirm that. I would just say it'd probably be appropriate to give Laurie a moment to speak, and if any board members wanted to say anything to her, I think that would be appropriate, if you're okay with that, Wayne.
I am.
Thank you. Roger, I've really enjoyed my time here at UIA Utopia. It is a challenge to keep up with Roger, as my coworkers can attest, but we all do our best. Many of you may or may not know that when I was with Midvale City, Midvale was one of the founding partners of Utopia. Lee King was the city manager. And back in 2004 through 2006, before Utopia had enough money to hire an accountant, that was part of my responsibility at Midvale City to do the accounting for Utopia. So it's kind of fun to have all of that come full circle. I've always been a champion of Utopia, and I have the utmost respect for the staff, all of those people in the partner cities, and both boards for working as hard as they have to keep the dream alive. I will miss everyone. I do want to say that I'm pleased Jason will be my successor. I've known Jason for many years. We go way back, and I know that he'll be successful. So thank you.
Well said, Laurie. And with so many memories I have of Utopia, sometimes they get blocked out from the pain, right? I was winking there in case anybody couldn't see me. But I'd forgotten that time period or needed to be reminded of it, that Laurie had done that work with us at the gracious behest of Midvale. That was well done and very much appreciated by the organization. So thank you, Laurie, for your service then as well as your service now. Anybody else have any commentary? I was also going to say I would be, and will be, pending approval by this body. Glad to see Jason on as well. He's always been a very dedicated and not just supporter of Utopia, but also get in the details weeds. He wanted to know what was going on. He had a very objective view, and I've known Jason in that capacity for a long time, and I'm sure he'll bring that attitude as well as his financial expertise to the position. So he certainly comes with my recommendation as well.
Wayne, could I request, I don't know Jason, that he provide a little background?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Jason Roberts. I started out as a CPA with the Ernst & Young in Salt Lake City back in the early 2000s. Then I went and worked for a bank as a controller for 4 years, and it had always been my goal in life to work my way north to northern Utah, which I managed to do, and I worked for Brigham City. I was Brigham City's finance director for 7 years, and then I was their city administrator for 6. With some of the telecommuting opportunities, I found a way that I could work for a very good organization, which is Utopia, and still live in Box Elder County, which I'm very, very excited about. I'm looking forward to the challenges of Utopia. I've been involved with some of the bad times. I mean, I don't remember anything prior to 2009, but I can give you part of my background with Utopia is Brigham City back in 2009, we put some liens on houses. My first year there, I was told by the city administrator I had to stand up in front of about 700 or 800 angry citizens and explain why liens were a good idea. So that was my first experience with Utopia. I've seen it come a long way since then, and a lot of good decisions be made. And that's one of the things that did make me want to work here and be involved with something great that's great for the people of our cities and great for the state and great for everybody.
So fair to say you were not always as optimistic about Utopia.
I was about Utopia, but I didn't love the idea of putting liens on houses.
The liens were rough. Yeah, that was there too. That was not fun.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
No, Wayne, but I'd be happy to make a motion.
That'd be great.
Okay. I would move that we approve a resolution number UT 22-01, thanking Laurie Harvey for her services to Utopia and ratifying and confirming the appointment of Jason Roberts as Utopia's Chief Financial Officer.
Very good. Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. This is Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, well, wait a sec. Krista, do we need a voice vote on this one? We probably need roll call. Sorry, roll call, not voice.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Roger, you need to unmute me. Yeah, I can take the vote. Can I ask a question real quick? Derek Euler, I noticed that you're on with Brigham City. You are not technically a voting member for Utopia, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Jeffrey Lamson?
Jeff, you may be on mute or we just didn't hear you.
I'll come back. Adam Cowie?
Yes.
Matt Dahl?
Yes.
Mark Christensen?
Yes.
Doug Hill?
Yes.
Robin Meekum?
Yes.
Zach Bloxham? Zach Bloxham?
Zach, are you there? I see he's not muted.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jason Sant?
Yes.
Sorry, Jeff Lamson again?
Aye.
And Wayne Pyle?
Yes. Very good. I don't think I heard anybody vote in opposition, so I believe the resolution passed unanimously. Let's move on to item number 5, resolution UT 22 item number 4, UT 22-02. Along with the new financial officer, we need to change those with access to the PTIF accounts. Roger, did you want to introduce this?
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward one. We just have to just designate Jason and our staff with the updates and staffing for administering that account and funds.
All right. Any questions on that? If not, we'll take a motion.
This is Adam. I move to approve resolution UT 22-02, authorizing the individuals as listed to have access to the PTIF account.
Thank you, Adam.
Second, Matt Dahl.
Okay, thank you, Matt. All right, we have a motion and a second. Krista? Krista, not hearing you, at least on my end.
That's my fault, sorry.
Sorry, Jeff Lamson?
Aye.
Adam Cowie?
Aye.
Matt Dahl?
Yes.
Mark Christensen?
Yes.
Tom Peterson?
Yes.
Doug Hill?
Yes.
Robin Meekum?
Yes.
Zach Bloxham?
Yes.
Jason Sant?
Yes.
And Wayne Pyle?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Krista. Okay, we will move on to item number 5, approval of resolution 22-03, which is the adoption of the tentative budget for the new fiscal year. And so since it says Lori, I'm going to assume Lori's still in charge and we'll be doing the presentation here.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. Let's see if it works. If not, okay, can you see that slide presentation?
No.
Okay. Not understanding why that's not working, but Roger, would you mind pulling up the agenda?
On this page? You want this one, or do you want me to go down to the slides like this?
The slides. So I have attached the detailed spreadsheet for the Utopia budget. It's 3 or 4 pages long. It has columns for 2021 actuals, 2022 year to date, and projected enhancements, the proposed 2023 budget, and then some variances. Rather than going through all of those numbers, I wanted to go over the highlights with you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have once you do have more time to go through the detail, or questions that come up during this slide presentation. So this first slide is the fiscal year 2022 budget to actual. Fiscal year 2022 projected revenue exceeds budget by $235,000. We anticipated bringing in 31.9 million in revenue. Looks like 32.1, so we met our projections. FY22 expenditures are $555,000 below budget. We anticipated spending 31.4 million on the total expenditures line. We believe we'll come in very close to that at about 30.9 million. Note that the $800,000 reduction of fund balance deficit is budgeted, but not really spendable. So with that, if you back out that 800,000, then we're very close to what we thought we would increase fund balance by in fiscal year 2022. For amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget, I recommend that we amend the 22 budget, increasing estimated revenues by $200,000 and appropriating it to plant repairs and maintenance, which exceeded budget by about $400,000. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll come in as budgeted, but I want to leave a little bit of room in case some of those accruals at year end throw us off. So that's fiscal year 2022 in review. If you jump to the next slide, Utopia's debt service makes up 43% of the proposed 2023 budget. The amount is increasing by $309,800 in fiscal year 2023. As you're aware, the cities pay the debt service in its entirety. However, distributions from UIA have generally kept the city's net debt service from increasing since 2017. I have a slide at the end of the presentation showing their proposed distribution from UIA for fiscal year 2023. But for purposes of reviewing the fiscal year 2023 budget, I have left debt service out of the remaining slides. It distorts operations. So just know, yes, debt service is going up. Yes, it will continue to be paid by the cities, but UIA is distributing money to those cities to keep the net effect at the level that it was in 2017. Operating revenues, the fiscal year 2023 budget shows an increase in operating revenues of $3.5 million over projected fiscal year 2022 revenues. The largest component of this increase is compensation from UIA, which I'll review in the next slide. Other increases are largely due to the success of the Idaho Falls network, reflected in transport fees. Idaho Falls is our fastest growing Utopia network, and also the consulting fees for the new Yellowstone fiber network. That is reflected down here in other revenue. Utopia receives a service fee of 3% of construction costs, which we estimate to be around $16 million for 2023. So that is a new source of revenue for Utopia. And once Yellowstone Fiber gets footprints released, you will start seeing residential and possibly commercial transport increasing.
All right, if I could interrupt you for just a sec, just to
Yes.
clarify for anybody who might not remember, myself included, the Yellowstone Network is the Bozeman partnership. Is that correct, Roger?
Yeah, that's right. So it was rebranded because there's likelihood that there will be some grant opportunities to expand beyond Bozeman City. It's not a partnership with the city, it's a partnership with Bozeman Fiber as a nonprofit. And they decided to rebrand that so that it wouldn't feel limited to Bozeman City territory. So
Okay.
it's now Yellowstone Fiber.
Very good. And also just kind of following that, I know as we take on these new projects, Roger, you and the staff tend to be pretty conservative in terms of revenue projections, which are of course based on speed of signups and take rates and all that sort of thing. Any commentary on that for our 2023 proposed? I know the largest piece of this is UIA compensation anyway, but anything on the other pieces that you see as noteworthy?
I mean, I think it is pretty conservative what we expect out of those networks in this year. That'll ramp up more in later years. You know, the next couple of years is going to be construction heavy on those networks, which we're not funding. There was a bond issued under Bozeman Fiber to fund the construction of that network. We'll see some growth of revenues on those, but when that network is built out to completion, it'll be covering about 20,000 households. Which we're expecting to get about 10,000 subscribers off of. You say that might seem a little optimistic, but their market is very strong. When we compare it to other markets we're in, we expect it to be on the high end for take rate revenues. So that'll happen over several years. We'll see that growth, and we are kind of in that stage to some extent in Idaho Falls, where it starts slow as they start building, but now we're in that customer growth mode and seeing a couple hundred customers come on, at least when it's not too cold in the summer months. Every month we'll see a couple hundred come on, and those are great. We get revenue from each one of those customers, yet we don't expend, we don't have any capital or any debt tied to those projects. We're just providing the service of the design work, some consulting work, and the operating with our NOC, and some of our other services to support those customers, but no employees in those networks, no local resources from Utopia, everything we do from our teams here in Murray and South Salt Lake.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Roger. Back to you, Laurie.
Thank you. This graph on this slide does show for 21, 22, and 23, the different components. UIA compensation is the largest component. You can especially see that in fiscal year 2023. Remember, as we've just been talking about, most of the growth is at UIA. However, with the Idaho Falls contract and the Bozeman/Yellowstone contract, we are starting to recognize more and more revenue at Utopia. And as the revenue at Utopia grows, the hope would be that Utopia could start paying a portion of the debt service payments that all of the cities are paying. On the next slide, the management fee from UIA to Utopia is in place to allocate Utopia administrative expenses that are not captured by the service contract between UIA and Utopia. As UIA grows, the administrative functions of Utopia are increasingly allocable to UIA activity. Because most of the system revenue is earned at UIA, a reasonable portion of that revenue needs to be paid to Utopia to cover Utopia's costs. And analysis indicates that the appropriate amount for fiscal year 2023 is $3.3 million. That's an increase of 22% over fiscal year 2022. Last year, the increase from 21 to 22 was 18%. This first came into play in about 2019, possibly 2018, when our independent auditors had a problem with the fact that Utopia was bearing the financial burden for operating UIA and suggested that we start allocating some of the revenue from UIA to Utopia to cover the costs. It made sense, and it helps us in our trying to find a reasonable and fair method to get revenue or cash reserves over to Utopia to cover that Utopia debt.
Laurie, I have a question about that.
Yes.
Does this management fee then cover the cost of the new employees that are being proposed in next year's budget?
It does. It helps cover those costs. We took the final proposed budget, looked at how much of that was allocable to UIA or Utopia, and then took percentages of that. So yes, it would help cover that cost.
So a portion of that is also assessed to the UIA, the new employee costs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so Utopia employs everybody, and so as UIA finances and grows the network, more and more money is available that should come over to Utopia to pay for our administrative costs here. It's a good thing when this number goes up, because it enables Utopia to have more money, and obviously UIA needs to be making more money in order to pay a higher amount, but that's been the trend. So it's been a good thing to be able to get more money over to Utopia.
Okay, the next slide is the second component of funds that come over from UIA to Utopia. It is the service contract that was first adopted in 2010. The original fees were not increased until 2019, and we've adjusted those fees annually since then. The service contract between Utopia and UIA intends to capture the costs directly associated with addresses passed, active subscriber connections, and new connections which are managed by Utopia. We are proposing a 10% increase in those fees from 2022. Network operations, UIA pays Utopia $7.87 per month for each UIA active connection. That's up from $7.15. Provisioning, UIA pays Utopia $17.33 one time for each new UIA connection. For field maintenance, the cost is $1.43 per month for each UIA address passed. And then there's a fee, $36.66 per month for each UIA hut or cabinet maintained by Utopia. The proposed budget for 2023 is $5.8 million compared to $4.4 million is the estimated cost for 2022. It's an increase of $1.3 million above the projected amount. This graph shows relative increases in 3 categories of Utopia operating expenses. The proposed increase in operating expenses for 2023 is $4.7 million. Salaries and benefits have remained consistent at about 63% of operating expenses. The next few slides break down the 3 categories. We are requesting.
And I would say this is our tentative budget. You know, we're still doing some arm wrestling with all the different positions and things. So we'll probably have a couple of adjustments, but this captures most of what we're planning to do.
Thank you, Roger. We are requesting the addition of 9 positions for 2023 to handle the increasing workload. I will mention this compares to 15 positions that were added in 2022. We went from 80 to 95 in 2022. We are requesting the addition of 9 new FTEs. In administration, a governmental affairs coordinator, a purchasing specialist in finance and accounting. They would also work very closely with the warehouse and the inventory, our new inventory system. An additional network operating center technician, a construction project manager for outside plant construction, one additional locator. You may remember we brought Blue Stake Locating in-house several years ago. As our area grows, we have the need for additional people to cover that area, which is extending further from to the north and to the south. A field services technician, an additional network engineer, an order fulfillment clerk, and an additional customer service representative for a total of 9. I will say that that number is down from the number of requested positions that first came in for Roger to review. This is his first cut through those requests.
We may need to take it up a couple.
We do have some interns. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we're at today.
Do you have any questions on this list or comments, Roger?
Yeah, I would say this is a very conservative swipe at our needs. I just want to make the point, some of our employees are probably like, hey, we really have some need for more people here and there. We're trying to balance being efficient, but also don't want to harm the level of service that we provide. We do see things take an effect. If we're not able to schedule our technicians to do a restoration of services within the same day or next day, things start getting pushed out several days. We track these things very closely with every ticket and every incident, every phone call, every email that has to be responded to. A lot of these are just in response to the natural growth of the network. We, are adding customers at, the fastest pace in our history, other than a bump that we took right when COVID hit. But we are growing very, very fast. And even this, I believe, is a very lean team for the size of network we are, the number of customers we have, and the rate of growth. Those all affect us. Again, I'd say, plus or minus a few positions on this is probably where we need to land. But this captures most of it. And I think we can continue to maintain, top level of service with this team. Governmental affairs coordinator is probably not the right title for that position that we're talking about. It's more of a kind of a strategic. I don't know how to describe it. The main thing is that there's a lot of opportunity in partnership and in grant applications with all the money that's coming down through the federal government and state programs. We just have not been resourced well to go after as many opportunities as they are there, and in our partnerships with cities. And so I just could really use some help on that side of things. So that's what that position is. The other ones are probably more straightforward in with their titles. But I don't know. Does anyone have any questions about these? All right. These are kind of the pay ranges for those.
Yep.
Where we're at.
Yep. Salaries and benefits.
Some
This
people
is
government affairs. I think that's a straight up lobbyist, and that's not really what we see happening there. I may need to change the title on that.
yeah. Yeah, this is the all-in cost, about 616,000 in salaries, 284,000 in benefits, for an all-in cost of 899,900. I will mention that that is a full year cost. Doubt very highly that all of these FTEs would come on board on day one. So this is probably overstated for fiscal year 2023. But we want to budget the full amount because that amount would be built into our ongoing budget.
So being new to this board, could you explain, Roger, how do you determine market for these positions?
I mean, we are more comparable to private sector broadband companies than we are public sector employees. So it really becomes a comparison of what we see out there, where we're able to retain employees. You know, we do lose people here and there. And so we have done some work to have an outside analyst come in and do a salary analysis, but it hasn't been as good as and helpful as I'd hoped. So a lot of this is just kind of the connections we have with our partners out there, where they're at, and just our own ability to post these and negotiate salary rates with people. We are getting hit double, and what I mean by that is, you know, obviously inflation is hitting all of us, and the rates to maintain competitiveness. It's become difficult just to keep pace with inflation. But I say we're getting hit double in the sense that the broadband industry in general is in incredibly high demand right now. With all the money, you know, if you've heard of the infrastructure bill and the money coming down the pipeline, the budget for broadband projects is about $60 billion. With that and all the various state programs and priorities that have been given to this, almost every firm I know of in the broadband space has a lot of vacancies and openings that we're competing with in order to fill and maintain our employees here. So between, you know, gauging where we're at, trying to remain competitive, reaching out and looking at broadband companies and where they're paying, we do our best to determine where we need to hire those at. And I think this is, you know, where these positions need to be generally. I mean, we have ranges, so, you know, junior level and senior level get different pay depending on where they come in from a qualifications perspective, but this is a kind of in the middle estimate of where we need to be for these jobs.
Okay, on the next slide, moving on to proposed COLA and merit for the current employee base. We acknowledge the need to follow the lead of our member cities when considering COLA and merit increases. We surveyed our member cities, and based on what we learned, we believe that our proposal of 7% cost of living adjustment and 3% merit is reasonable. We didn't name the cities, but this graph shows what we learned from those cities. The COLAs ran from 2% to 8%. Some of those cities where the cost of living adjustment was lower, they indicated that they had done some type of COLA earlier in the year. The merit increases ranged from no merit increase to 5%. One city did a 4% merit increase last December. As far as market reviews, we did conduct a market review and determined there were 3 or 4 different salary grades that were below market that we would like to adjust independently from any cost of living adjustment or merit increase. If you go to the next slide, the cost of the combined 10% increase, market adjustments and insurance increase total $1,057,600. Salaries and wages for the combined 10% increase, $702,000. Some of that would be applied to overtime that our FTEs are working, our employees are working. Payroll taxes and retirement brings the total for the all-in cost for a 10% increase to $888,900. The market adjustments all in about $121,000, and then anticipating a 5% premium increase for medical insurance, which is split 80-20, that adds $47,700, bringing the total to $1,057,600. Moving on from that, the network support component of UTOPIA expenditures. Sorry, I don't have a total on here, but the network support is increasing by approximately $366,200. Half of that is for repair and maintenance of outside plant. which includes HVAC generators and repairs. Frankly, I underestimated the cost for fiscal year 2022. You can see that we spent about 1.2 million in 2021. We budgeted 800,000. The amount projected for 2022 is 1.2 million. I have included in the budget 1.4 million for fiscal year 2023. A couple of other items on this list: co-locations and easements and leases will increase as we build out into partner cities. We have pole attachments in power cities or that are payable to Pacific Corp when we do aerial attachments, and then additional co-locations as we add the number of service providers to our network. Also, vehicle expense is expected to increase. Some of this would be the growing cost of fuel, and also vehicle expense for new FTEs should they be approved. Administrative costs are increasing by 1.6 million over projected fiscal year 2022. Most of that increase is related to the requirement to budget for reduction of fund balance deficit, and increased capital expenditures related to system improvements. You can see that we have $900,000 budgeted for the reduction of fund balance that's required by the state auditors. It's 5% of revenue for the year. The increase in professional services budget includes, among other things, the appropriation to hire a DC lobbyist should we need it. There is a lot going on at the federal level. Way back in the early days, Utopia did pay for a DC lobbyist. So I believe there's about $150,000 in that budget of $593,000 for a DC lobbyist, should the board and Roger feel like that's the direction that they want to go. Increase in...
I'm not considering that approved yet. That's like, we're budgeting for it and want to have some more discussion around that, whether we do it or not. This is one where I was probably I pushed hard to cancel it when we used to have it. I just felt like, why are we spending all this money? We're not getting any benefit. The way it is right now with that $60 billion at the federal level and the rules and the stipulations coming around that, to have influence with the FCC and with the NTIA and others, we've not had a lot of luck getting those things turned in a way that's favorable to Utopia, although the goals of the programs they just get mucked up by all the lobbyists, by the incumbents and others. So we're trying to get a little bit of voice in those programs to push them in a way that would work for us and other open access networks like us. So at this time, it seems like we would probably be able to get good value out of that. Again, at this point, I'm not assuming that's approved. We're budgeting for it. Would like to have some more discussions before we get final budget approval next meeting, whether we want to include that or not.
The other increase, $122,000 increase in other administrative costs. Most of that is related to a net cost of about $80,000 to $90,000. That increase is related to the transition from our old payment portal to the more efficient and more user-friendly Express Bill Pay portal. We've completed that transition, and our staff appreciates the ease of use, and we believe our customers appreciate the ease of use.
Lori, I have a question about fund balance. You've mentioned a couple of times that the auditor has requested that you decrease the fund balance. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to why are they recommending the decrease in fund balance? And then also I haven't seen anywhere that shows what is the fund balance. So unless maybe I'm not understanding
I
this
think,
concept of fund balance, but is there a amount in the fund balance now or at the end of
yeah,
the fiscal year? And when you show decrease next year of $145,000, are you decreasing the fund balance by amount, or is that what's left in the fund balance?
First of all, this slide on administrative costs, where it says reduction of fund balance, that is mislabeled. It is reduction of fund balance deficit. So state law requires public entities, if they have a fund balance deficit, to appropriate 5% of their revenues toward reduction of that fund balance deficit. So that is misleading. That needs to be changed. It's reduction of fund balance deficit. Utopia does have a fund balance deficit of over 20 million, mostly related to the interest and the debt service on the Utopia debt, plus the debt service to the cities who have been, sorry, not the debt service, but the note payable to the cities that have been paying those Utopia pledge payments over the year. Jumping back to, let me see if I can go back to the, you mentioned 145,000. Hang on just a minute. Trying to find the 145,000 that you're referring to.
It's on the
Is it on the spreadsheet?
slide, let me see, 14, and it's the proposed FY23 budget increase decrease. So the bottom
Okay.
right cell.
Okay, so the summary page, Roger, I can't see right now what you are showing on the screen. Is it the summary that shows description, revenues, expenditures? Okay, we are showing that for 2023, we expect to bring in revenues of 35.9 million and in expenditures of 35.8 million, which would increase the fund balance by 145,800. This reduction of fund balance deficit can get confusing. Included in this $35.8 million of expenditures is a $900,000 appropriation to reduce the fund balance deficit. So I anticipate, I mean, that's really unspendable. It's basically us saying, we have that in mind. We know we need to reduce the fund balance. We need to work on that. And it's appropriating an expenditure item for reduction of fund balance deficit. It's not spendable. So by the time you get through with 2023, if everything else falls into place, our expenditures would be 35 million instead of 35.8, and we would have revenue of 1.1 million, which is similar to what we are projecting in fiscal year 2022. So the fund balance at Utopia is a major deficit fund balance. It's a little different than UIA. UIA's deficit fund balance at the end of 2021 was only $445,000. We changed our depreciation method and made an improvement in the deficit fund balance for 2021. And I believe that the fund balance for UIA will be in the positive for 2022 and going forward. Cannot say that for Utopia because of the interest on the Utopia notes payable, plus the interest on the notes payable that sits on the books for repayment to cities who have been making that pledge.
All right, well, I don't want to belabor this, and maybe we can have a conversation offline, but if I were to summarize what I just heard is that the Utopia does have a negative fund balance.
Correct.
And that's because of the debt service that
Correct.
has been attributed. And I'm assuming then because of that, that the payments that the cities make to make that debt service are not considered as revenue to go against that debt service.
In the spreadsheets that you have, you will see a line for contributions from cities. I believe it's about $15.6 million. That's included in revenues. And then on the spreadsheet, in non-departmental, you'll see debt service of a matching amount, $15.6 million. So that money basically comes into UIA as revenue, and the same amount goes out as a debt service payment.
So why doesn't,
kind of going to Doug's question, which is a similar one that I had. So would it also be safe to say that, yes, the city's contributions do count towards that payment, especially in the manner it's said as the collective revenue. However, overall, and this, I'm not sure what the answer is. Yes, maybe it's a yes or a no. You can clarify. But altogether, the city's revenues aren't enough from a negative fund balance, or what would translate to a principal reduction, if I understand that correctly, to meet that 5% reduction goal. And therefore we have to use other portions of our revenue, or is that wrong?
No, that's correct. I mean, the revenue from the cities is a direct pass through to the debt, and then operations has to stand on its own. The 5%, the requirement from the state to budget for reduction of fund balance is just a statement from them saying, if you have a fund balance, you must appropriate 5% of your anticipated revenue, of your revenues from the prior year, toward the reduction of that fund balance. And so they are requiring us to add a line in the budget with the amount that we intend to reduce fund balance by. I don't know if we're talking in circles here, or if I
think if I could break in, the way I look at it is the payments from the cities don't help reduce our negative fund balance.
Correct.
They just basically keep it level and help pay for some interest. But because we are booking a note payable to the cities to be paid back at a future time,
right,
that's not going to help our fund balance situation.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Jason.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. You want to hit this slide, the good news?
Yes. So the next slide is the good news. The next slide is the UIA. This is an FYI. I know that you are all very interested in the distribution of excess revenue from UIA. For 2022, the distribution is slightly higher than what was presented with last year's budget. We are covering the pledge increase since 2017 for all cities who paid OPEX assessments in full, and adding the amount necessary to pay off any remaining UIA note payable to cities. So this second column, I'm sorry, we had some questions about this in the UIA meeting, and it's a bit confusing. What we're proposing is distribute to the cities this 1.417835, 1,417,000. That's the increase in pledge payments from 21 to 2022. The next column is any amount left after that payment that remains on the books of UIA. We want to pay off that note payable. So for instance, Clearfield's increase in their pledge payment was $48,000. UIA still has on the books after that distribution $76,337. So in their case, you would add those two numbers together to get to the total distribution of $124,522. I'm sorry, I believe I said Clearfield. I meant Centerville. In the case of Layton, the UIA note payable to Layton April 30th was 187. Their increase in their pledge payment is 241. Once that is distributed, that takes care of the note payable for Layton. So the columns over here in remaining UIA note payable balance would be additions for cities who still have UIA note payable remaining after this dividend. The total distribution then for fiscal year 2022 is 1.728, 1,728,139. And the better news, I mean, that's good news, but what we are proposing for 2023 is now that UIA note payable balance is off of the UIA books, we wanted to move to a different formula or a different way of looking at this distribution. We believe that the financial success that we will be experiencing in 2023 will allow UIA to distribute excess revenues of $4 million. So that distribution of $4 million would be allocated to the cities based on their portion of the Utopia pledge. In the fiscal year 2023, Utopia pledge amounts are listed here on the left, $15,341,089, and the $4 million is allocated based on each city's percentage of that Utopia pledge. Just to note, Payson is not listed here. Payson's pledge will be paid off in 2027. So we're not trying to punish Payson, but they are not required to increase their pledge increase by 2% each year. So they haven't been included in the distribution. This distribution must be approved by.
Like the logic before was a mess, right? It was like, well, we assessed cities using this logic, and then we paid the cities back based on a different logic, and that kind of put everybody in different payback schedules and whatever. And so really for this year, it was two goals: make sure that they're getting enough money to cover their increasing payments on the Utopia bonds, if they were part of that. So that wasn't Payson. I mean, they were part of the early version, but not part of the refinance. And so we checked that box, and if we still, the other goal was pay off any outstanding OpEx payments. So for most cities, it was one or the other, and there's a few exceptions where the 2% wasn't enough to cover the OpEx because of the logic applied to the payback. So taking the higher of the two to make sure that the cities are at least getting the increase offset by a repayment, and if we still owed money above and beyond that, we're also paying that off. So now everybody's on the same playing field. Well, now, rather than just say, okay, this next year we're going to take another 2% equivalent, we're in a better financial position than that at UIA. And as we've laid out the goals of Utopia and UIA, it was always build the network out first, let's get this thing built, and then maximize debt relief. So we find ourselves now in a position where we're finishing the final areas of build of the original cities, and now have some money available for reducing the obligations on the Utopia bonds. But the difficulty is the money's over at UIA. So UIA is making a distribution back to the cities that we are hoping that you will apply towards outstanding amounts at Utopia. It's not a huge deal how that happens this year, but we'll want to address that with each city of how we account for that as that money gets bigger and bigger each year. But the reality is we're coming in saying now we can take out this 2% thing because we're going to do better than that. And now it's based mostly on available funds. We are budgeting towards $4 million and just dividing that out proportionally to the amount of money the cities are making on the Utopia bonds. And you'll see that's quite a bit of a bump up from where we're at this year to what we're proposing for next year. So these payments, if this was approved in the UIA meeting for the distribution for 2022, so that those payments will go out in the next week or so, plus or minus. Sorry. But you know, the good news of all this is we're paying the bills at Utopia or UIA 100% and paying for growth and expansion and all that other stuff. And the cities aren't having to pay on any of the UIA debts. There's no OpEx assessments or anything like that. And there's additional money available. Plus Utopia is over here, and it's like, while the cities are still making payments on the bonds, you're getting relief here from UIA to cover an increasing amount of that every year, and we're going to keep pushing to raise that target every year. And the logic behind that is basically available funds, but we certainly want to be pushing the envelope every year as we come back to see how much debt relief we can provide, continuing to grow revenues and partnerships and all that at Utopia and at UIA to grow that number.
Great news.
That's all I have on the budget. I do want to mention, we were talking about benefits, and I've had a couple of questions from board members regarding the OPEB liability for Utopia. We are planning to discontinue that program. We are aware that our member cities do not have any sort of retiree health benefit plan. I talked with board member Hill regarding the way that they handled this in Murray. He mentioned that they sunsetted it after 2 years and allowed employees to make sure that employees were aware of that. So if they wanted to retire before the end of that 2 years to take advantage of that plan, they could. We currently don't believe we have any employees who would be hurt by ending this plan right now, but we don't know that. And so we're struggling to do the right thing here. We do know that ending that plan is the right thing to do. We only have one employee who is currently using the retiree health benefit plan. So I did want to mention that. It isn't costing us a lot, but it looks like it is. I mean, when you look at the Utopia financial statements, they're complicated enough without having to add the OPEB liability and all of the related notes. So I just wanted to bring that up. I appreciate the comments that I have heard from all of you, and we are working to do away with that benefit.
I appreciate you taking action or responding to those questions. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Doug and Laurie. Laurie, did I hear you say that's the end of the budget presentation?
That's it.
Okay, thanks very much. I see we're only about halfway through our agenda here. Yes.
Can I just jump in there really quick? And
yes, Adam,
just
you bet.
wanted to point out, and I know looking at an increase in total Utopia revenues in the data that was presented today. So we've got from fiscal year ending that in 2021 up to the proposed in 2023 fiscal year, a 40% increase in total Utopia revenues between those. And with the employee increase, just wanted you to keep in mind, based on those numbers presented, it's a 44% increase in salaries and benefits. That's a big jump in 2 years. And I think we're on a great trajectory. I just want you as administrators to keep an eye on that in future years. That it's a little bit concerning that our salaries and benefits are increasing at a faster rate percentage-wise than our revenues. And so just to keep that in mind. So.
Yep, great comment, Adam. Appreciate that. Roger, any quick response to that?
Yeah, I mean, the quick one would be we don't expect that to continue. You know, this is a little bit of a catch-up year, both in filling some positions we need, but also getting hit double on inflation and just the higher demand for people in this industry. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, we look at it and we're like, that's a big jump. At the same time, you know, we believe these are positions we need to do. We believe there are increases we need to make. At the same time, collectively with Utopia and UIA, you know, we do need to support where a lot of this growth is happening, and it's tough because we point over at the UIA side of things, and Utopia is the one providing all the resources and people to make the things happen that are happening over at the UIA side. So while, you know, it'd probably be cleaner to have a significant increase in the revenues coming for UIA to pay for the increased administrative cost. We kind of have to size that appropriately each year. You know, the form of doing that this year really is less in the form of paying more administrative cost over to Utopia, but in that UIA dividend or whatever we call that, distribution fund. So it's there, but when you look at just the Utopia budget, it doesn't come out there because that money is being budgeted on the UIA side of things. But the concept of, hey, this is a really big ask and a really big increase, we get that. At the same time, I would defend it. I think we're not bloated from a staffing perspective. The general attitude is we're still running very, very lean, and also trying to remain competitive in a very competitive environment for employees in the broadband space.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Roger. Okay, so if we can, here, let me find my spot back on the agenda. There we are.
Can I ask,
if we could, oh, yep, go ahead, Matt.
I do just have a couple quick questions before we move on from the budget. I know time is short here, but first thing is I just want to say, I agree that I do think that you guys are running lean and that those salary increases given the market make a lot of sense. So I appreciate that that's there. And I also appreciate the thoughts on us needing to keep an eye on salaries and all that. But it's like you said, it's a weird year. So I appreciate what you're doing there. I'm a little late on a couple of these things, but I wanted to mull them over in my head. But I just, from today's discussion, I mean, I think that DC lobbyist seems like a pretty good idea with the amount of money that's around. If they just get a small victory, they'll end up paying for themselves. So I know we'll discuss that more, but that's where my head's at on that one right now. I also appreciate the efforts that you guys have done to find some additional funding to help us out with our annual debt payments. So the cities. So I appreciate you looking at that. One question I have, and it's something that's still on my mind, is how do we address, particularly in my city and maybe in some of the other low take rate cities, trying to get some more of our populations to take advantage of Utopia. And I was looking through the budget, and I'm sure I'm misunderstanding this, but where it has the advertising budget, it looks like there's not much or anything there. I'm sure it's just in a different place, maybe.
Matt,
But
it's in UIA.
it's in UIA. Okay.
Thank you.
And then I will not ask any more questions, and I will. Thank you. That's what I figured was kind of the situation. I just wanted to double check.
No problem at all. Yeah, no problem at all.
Don't give Kim any more marketing money. She's already going crazy over there.
Okay. Well, actually, I do have just one quick. Nope, that's good enough. I'll ask it another time. I know we're behind. So I appreciate you answering that quick question for me. And then that is it. So I appreciate your time.
Okay. And not to rush this along, I do appreciate the questions and appreciate the fact that you guys are thinking deeply about this. You know, whether you're new to the organization, whether you've been in the organization a long time, there's a lot to absorb and to remember, for that matter, between the UIA and the Utopia sides here. So appreciate that. If there aren't any other questions on the budget, we would entertain a motion to adopt the tentative budget for 2023.
I'll be happy to make a motion that we adopt a resolution UT 22-03 for Utopia, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, setting the date and time for a public hearing regarding the FY 2023 budget. And that public hearing is scheduled in the resolution for June 13th at 10 a.m.
Very good. Matt, could I have you as the second then?
Yeah, second, Matt Dahl.
All right, very good. Thank you both. Krista?
Wayne, can I just make one comment about the budget? So
Sure.
I know I want to emphasize this is tentative, and there's going to be a lot, I think, that's going to happen between now and June 13th as far as COLAs go. I think we've all said that we know, at least in Murray, and I imagine you guys are similar, that's what we're proposing, but what we end up getting may be something different by June 13th. And so I would just like everybody to keep that in mind that if, that maybe Lori, as we get closer to that public hearing, we can have a reassessment of the COLA and see what really other cities are adopting versus proposing, because I'm concerned about adopting a COLA much higher than any of our cities are going to actually be giving.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Doug. I will add in the comment that yes, it is true. Those are projected numbers. They did seem to be pretty much in line with what I'm seeing with the other cities. I also was a little, I guess the way to put it would be, I'd be more concerned with what those COLA and market pressures are in the IT sector as opposed to the cities, although I know we share in that a little bit as well. I also was thinking as we had that conversation, I just got out of another board meeting for another entity that I sit on that's in the medical field. Same situation there. COLA and market increases are much higher than we've seen. I also sit on another board that's in the performance arts sector. Same exact thing for them too. So it wasn't a surprise to me, I guess, is the point I would make there. And so we'll just wait and see. We'll see how things move along here over the next couple of months. But with Doug's comment there, I also appreciate or extend appreciation to Laurie and Roger and the work they've done on this. And I'm sure there is a lot more. One thing I am curious about, which I know nobody has the answer to, is where does this all end? And especially when, for heaven's sake. So with that, Krista, the roll call.
Jeff Lamson,
Aye.
Adam Cowie,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Yes.
Mark Christensen,
Yes.
Tom Peterson,
Yes.
Doug Hill,
Yes.
Robin Meekum,
Yes, I do want to put in that I am concerned too with watching these COLAs from what the cities are going to be doing.
Zach Bloxham,
Yes.
Jason Sant,
Yes.
and Wayne Pyle.
Yes. Okay. Then with that, let's go on to setting the time and date for a public hearing for amendments to the FY22 budget. Laurie?
Yeah, I think I covered those in the presentation. It was mostly related to the potential overage in plant R&M. So I think all we need to do is set the time and date for that hearing.
All right, very good. Can we have a motion then to adopt? Oh, wait a minute. We don't need a motion on this one, or we do?
Motion to set the public hearing.
Okay. Sorry, broke up there. The motion is at the public hearing, or the motion is needed to set the public hearing?
Needed to set the public hearing.
All right, very good. And we have a motion to that effect then for item number 6.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we set June 13th, 2022 at 10 a.m. Is that the right time, Laurie? For a public hearing to consider amendments to the FY 2022 budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Jason Sant, I will second.
Thank you, Jason. Do we need a roll call on this one, Krista, or can we just do a voice?
Probably a roll call on this one.
Okay.
Jeff Lamson,
Aye.
Adam Cowie,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Yes.
Mark Christensen,
Yes.
Tom Peterson,
Yes.
Doug Hill,
Yes.
Robin Meekum,
Yes,
Zach Bloxham,
Yes.
Jason Sant,
Yes.
Wayne Pyle.
Yes. Okay, thank you all for that. We'll move on to items 7, 8, 9, which look to be informational updates. I will note that after item 7, which I'll stay on for, I'm going to have to leave. I'm already late for a meeting I was supposed to be in at 11. Jeff, would you mind taking over for me on 8, 9, and 10?
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. I was just saying, I am in the same boat. I am supposed to be in another meeting right now at 11. And I was just typing up a text saying I need to excuse myself. So,
no problem. Who's the second chair? I can't remember.
It's me.
Adam?
Yeah.
How about you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Adam. Roger, will you take us through the RCRC MOU then, please?
Yes. So RCRC is the, let me pull up this agreement here. Am I pulling up the right one here? Let's see here. Windows open. Okay. So RCRC is a joint powers authority in California, but they've created a new joint powers authority called Golden State Connect Authority. The group, RCRC, represents 38 counties in rural California. We've been talking to them for quite a while, and they really like what we've done in Idaho Falls and Bozeman. And so this isn't an agreement to do their projects, or really there's no obligations here. What they're interested in, let me just scroll down here, is basically to talk about it. And so they're saying, hey, we would like to work and towards an agreement. I think the idea is that it would end up being something like the Idaho Falls and probably more specifically the Bozeman Fiber, now Yellowstone Fiber, as they've rebranded, agreement, where we would provide certain services for them and we would charge them for that. The topics for negotiation, again, we're not saying what we're going to do and what they're going to do, but we're kind of assuming it probably ends up similar to Bozeman, but we would just be in discussions with them to decide, is there a potential partnership to be made here where we would perform some of these tasks and they would perform some, and then we would work towards that. There's no obligation, either party could terminate this, but they want to establish that we are where they are desiring to do these projects in partnership. It helps them apply for grants and apply for funding in the sense that they can say, hey, we have capability here in UTOPIA that they could come in and provide some services that they don't have in-house. Granted, we don't have any obligation to agree to doing that. We would simply say that we are also interested in this sort of a partnership, and if it comes to fruition, could be very significant. So this isn't Idaho Falls or Bozeman in the sense those are about 20,000 household networks. What's happened is a combination of programs in California, currently about $6 billion, a couple $1 billion in middle mile projects and other things that are facilitating fiber throughout the state, especially in the rural areas. And then there's additional funds that they're looking at RCRC and Golden State Connect Authority for both financing projects utilizing a state loan loss reserve program of $750 million and some other grant opportunities to fund projects in various communities. We're thinking collectively that they'll probably have a first phase of projects in the size of $100 to $200 million. And so that would be like 3 Bozemans. We're putting this in the size of Bozemans of projects where we would then help them make them happen, right? We're not going to be building these networks. But we would probably be issuing or writing the RFPs, vetting contractors, providing some high-level design work, and doing some management and oversight of the projects as they're engineered and constructed. And then when they come in to be operated, we would, similar to Bozeman, we'd probably take a role of network operating, customer service, things like that we can do out of our facilities here. The question then would become like, well, how much revenue are we talking about here? And there's such a wide swath of, this could be anywhere from a $50 million partnership of projects to hundreds of millions of dollars in projects, which would pull back to us being in, several $1 million a year in revenues. We took a swipe in the middle and said this could be $15 million of revenue for us each year if these projects, if about $500 million a project was authorized. Obviously, we're in very early stages of all this. I think the main point is this is worth considering. This could be an enormous source of revenue. What they and many others are finding is that they cannot find people to do these projects with the skill sets and existing operations that we have here at Utopia. Again, it is kind of, not to point back too much to this is why we need to pay well and retain people. Others are not finding that they can hire into these roles and create an organization to run these. I think they would if they felt that they could. But it puts us in a position to take advantage of our resources we have here to provide services. And this isn't to unlike-minded entities. This is a very like-minded entity. This is a group of communities in California who find themselves in the same situation that our cities found themselves in, where they could not get the right solution from the private sector providers. They want these to be 100% open access, right? They love our model as they would come in and build these open access networks. This helps our providers in giving them territory to go to, as well as potentially some California providers that would participate and potentially come in and offer services on our networks. And so it's kind of a mutually beneficial expansion of open access regionally that would benefit us and our service providers financially and significantly expand the reach of our networks. So again, we're not here with a proposal saying we're agreeing to this funding structure and these obligations. That's to be determined. This is simply basically saying that we would like to pursue terms, and we would come back someday in the future potentially with some scope of projects that they want to move forward on, and we would have the opportunity at that point to decide whether we feel like that's something we want to do or not. But conceptually, we're looking at something that would be like a Bozeman partnership, but at a larger scale.
So Roger,
Any questions?
have we seen this MOU before now?
No. So I had meant to put this in the packet and didn't. So I can forward this to you, or we can go through it here. But the recitals are basically saying we believe we have the rights under Utah and California law to enter into this. And then really it's just, we will, we have authority. It's a negotiation. We have topics for negotiation.
Can I ask who drafted the MOU?
Yeah, I'll email this out.
No, I'm just wondering who drafted the MOU?
Golden State Connect Authority did, which are the folks at RCRC. This was their request. I mean, we don't see any requirement to have an MOU in place in order to do this. Again, this is just negotiating. They felt it was helpful on their side to have an MOU just so they could point to the structure of how this partnership could work in order to go pursue funding and members of their organization. And that was an initial obstacle. They thought we have these 38 counties of RCRC and only a subset of them would want to pursue broadband, but it ended up being that all but one, I think, it joined, but then the other one had it on their tentative agenda to approve to join this. And this has become a top priority for the members of RCRC. So I think it now mirrors all of the RCRC members, which are counties in California.
So how urgent is this? Would there be any objection to giving us an opportunity to read through this MOU and become more comfortable with it, and then action to vote on it at a future meeting?
I worry about, there's no impact to us. They're wanting it pretty badly. I don't know why there's so much urgency on it, other than that they feel like if there's a grant opportunity today, sometimes checking the box in a grant opportunity is showing that they have the pieces they would need, at least potentially the pieces they need to fill these roles. And so I worry about, harming them in the sense that they may not be able to pursue grants that are available now if they don't have an MOU in place. But at the same time, it obligates us to nothing other than that, expressing an interest in having discussions with them. So I'm going to apologize that I didn't get this in the packet. That's my oversight, but I think it would be worthwhile having a vote on this. Again, I go through any of the language. It's a very short agreement. It's 3 pages.
So, and I don't want you to take this in the wrong way, but did an attorney representing Utopia or representing us, a Utopia City review this? Or are we just saying, when you say it doesn't obligate us to anything, am I just taking your word as?
Yeah, let me defer to Josh. Josh, you're familiar with this agreement.
Yeah.
You feel like there's exposure or risk to us?
No, I think the way that Roger has described the agreement is entirely consistent with my review of it. It really is just kind of setting a general framework of how we're going to be proceeding in a negotiation context without committing us to anything at this point.
Okay, I'm sorry, Josh. I'm sorry, I don't know you. Are you an attorney for Utopia?
Yeah, I'm general counsel here.
Okay, that's helpful. That was all I was looking for, is just, not that I don't trust you, Roger. I read agreements all the time, and my attorney tells me that I don't know what I'm reading. So I just want to make sure that we have an attorney that has read through this.
Yeah, no concern.
I appreciate that, Doug. Just a quick comment. So Doug and I both also sit on another board where we're currently, well, I guess we're done negotiating a settlement on an issue from years back, which apparently we did not study very well. So I appreciate Doug's concern on this. I was going to joke with him a little bit, Josh, and tell him that, yeah, no, Roger just grabbed the soda machine guy who happened to be wandering through because he was handy.
No, I'm usually more available than the soda machine guy around here, so for better or worse.
I've seen agreements drafted at the soda machine. That's why I'm raising a concern.
Hey, I will say too, Doug, that I am actually really familiar with both the opportunity. I'm no attorney either, so I can't vouch for the agreement, other than I asked the same questions as to what's our obligation here. I have also met with representatives of the RC, along with staff and Alex from Layton. And it does look like a very interesting, potentially very lucrative relationship for us. We have not, either verbally or, I assume, by this agreement, committed to anything. But I know what Roger's saying about their eagerness from a grant standpoint is correct. There's a lot of money floating around in California right now, which could help them. They have had a number of other contracting or consulting entities, kind of like we had at the very first days of Utopia, sort of soliciting them to be their partner, so to speak, in the field that we're examining here. So that's another reason they don't want to do this. It seems to me like the financial concerns they have in terms of securing grant monies are more important to them. But what Roger's saying is correct. I've had that conversation face to face with the representatives from the California people. And so they are, I can vouch for the fact that they're very eager to be exploring the relationship. And actually, to the point of item 7, I noticed there is no resolution. Did we need a vote on this? Were we just looking for was this informational, Roger, or do we need to vote for moving forward anyway?
I think we would like a vote. I don't know that it's strictly required. I think, I have to agree to make agreements all the time, but I think it was their request that they have kind of a board level view into this, which I don't have any objection to. Again, normally it'd be like, well, here I'm entering this into some big agreement, and I might want to bring those sorts of things to the board anyways, but this has no obligation to it. So it really is it's a political statement of just, yeah, we're interested in having a discussion with this entity and formalizing that. I think they see value in that, even though the obligation is nothing.
Okay, so then if you were to get formal support here, basically what you would be looking for is a motion to approve our signing of the MOU to go forward with negotiating with representatives of the Rural County Representatives of California organization. Is that in effect what you're looking for?
Yep.
Okay, other questions or anybody else wondering what's going on with the discussion? Would it be okay then? Could we have a motion to approve that action?
I'd make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the Rural County Representatives of California, RCRC, for the purposes of ongoing negotiation.
If I could just tweak that, I know it's in that way in the agenda, but it's actually a memorandum of understanding between Golden State Connect Authority and Utopia.
State Connect Authority.
So Golden State Connect Authority is the JPA they created just specifically for broadband projects.
All right, I will change that then to approve the memorandum of understanding with Golden State Connect Authority to support ongoing negotiations.
Zach, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Zach. So Matt with a motion and Zach with a second. Krista?
Adam Kelly,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Yes.
Mark Christensen,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Tom Peterson,
Yes.
Doug Hill,
Yes, but can I just clarify with that vote of yes, Roger, is it my understanding that any agreement would come back to the board? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Robin Meekum,
Yes.
Zach Bloxham,
Yes.
Jason Sant,
Yes.
and Wayne Pyle.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Krista. And that, Adam, I'm going to turn the items over to you with an apology. Sorry, everybody, that I have to leave, but it's great seeing you today, and we will talk again later.
Got it. Thanks. We'll move on to item number 8, Utopia financial update. Lori, anything that you wanted to go through?
We've covered a lot of finance today. So the only addition that I would have would be the revenue graphs that we present at each meeting. Roger, do you have those?
Roger, you did send out an email to all the members here the other day with all of those information by each city. So
yeah.
Yeah, so that's my network update side. That's subscriber information. I'm pulling up the packet here that has the financial graphs. Find it here.
I emailed it to
Roger,
you.
I don't think I received that email. Will you check and just make sure that I'm on that distribution list?
Who's that? Oh, Doug. Yes, I'll make sure you're on that. I'll double check. I just gotta find the right email here, Laurie.
Or we can try that if that works. Can you possibly see my screen?
I don't know why your screen's share.
I'll forward it.
Oh,
Okay.
hey, we can
see it.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the monthly recurring revenue combined for Utopia and UIA. We are for March, the recurring revenue was $3.1 million. 2.4 million of that is UIA revenue. 0.7 million is Utopia revenue. The next slide is the 12-month moving average of recurring revenue increase. So month over month increase in recurring revenue. We are comfortably above the $40,000 per month increase in ongoing revenue. And then the last slide quickly is, I know this is the Utopia board meeting. Know that you're interested in UIA performance. This is UIA revenue, again at 2.4 million for March, and the bond obligations. Each of the bond series is added to the previous debt service. The last couple that we added were Santa Clara and Cedar Hills. That'll be closing here in a couple of weeks. And one thing that I just like to point out to everyone is the gap that currently exists between UIA revenue and the UIA debt service. We're doing a good job of covering our debt service obligations. And that's my report.
Can you go back to that first slide, Laurie?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing to point out here is, I think 5 years ago, we just assumed that Utopia revenues would stay flat and potentially decrease. I think we've had some people like, why in the world is Utopia operating networks in Idaho and Montana and potentially California? And that's been the single best source of revenue growth for Utopia. We don't have any revenue really coming in from Bozeman yet. So if we're able to maintain growth at Idaho Falls and Bozeman and potentially do other partnerships like that, that could really, make the Utopia line look a lot more like the UIA line. Maybe that's too aggressive, but having that growth, having a future for Utopia growth separate from UIA is fantastic. Now, granted, if UIA continues to perform well and it's able to contribute more and more money back to the Utopia cities, obviously that's a good thing and puts us in a better position. So we're really excited that this year we have the first time we're proposing distributions back to the city that exceeds the increasing burden at the Utopia bond side of things. That's a huge milestone. And we're planning to do more and more of that every year. In addition, we're completing the last remaining areas of the Utopia member cities over the next few months, which is another enormous milestone. And we're really excited about all of this. So again, that's an awesome financial update. Any questions on the financial side of things?
Okay, hearing nothing. Thank you, Lori and Roger. Roger, anything else then on item number 9, network updates?
Just a couple notes. I did send out the subscriber numbers. We're about 46,000 something subscribers. At current rate of growth, we're hoping to get to about 50,000 subscribers near the end of the year. That's an arbitrary number, but it's exciting. So that's something that we may have some sort of event around. A very important event that we'll have coming up, we don't have a date yet, is an open house for Laurie. So we'll get information out to you for those that want to attend that. And then also the completion of the build out of the original cities that'll happen over the next couple of months, all the remaining areas. So that's an exciting milestone. We also want to schedule tours. with board members. If you're a board member that's not had a chance to visit our facility here or some of our fiber huts, you want a little more in-depth view of some of our equipment and what we're doing, I was just wondering if there'd be any interest in that. We brought this up in the UIA board meeting. I think probably about half the board members thought that would be of interest if you wanted to just kind of see more of what we do behind the scenes. We'd be more than happy to entertain you and take you around and show you some of the facilities, some of the blinking lights, we call them. So is there interest in that from some of the board members here?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
We'll send out some dates. We may do regional just so we don't make you drive all the way to the other end of the network. Since you all have network in your own cities, we'll try to do some sort of regional thing so to show you. It just seems like we're always showing the new partner cities. They like to do tours and see what's going on. Even cities from across the country send people here to see how we work and operate and build networks. And it occurred to us that many of our board members haven't seen our network to that level of detail. So we'd be more than happy to show you guys around what we're doing. And then, I think that's about all I have. I'll make sure, Doug, you're on our report list, but feel free to dig into those reports to see how things are going in, collectively and in your individual cities. We're trying to be more and more transparent with, all of our information, and things are going well. So any questions for me on the network? Oh, one other update, it's just a technology update, is we are in process of another upgrade of our core. And we're ordering equipment and planning to be lighting up 400 gigabit links in various parts of our core, just to support the increasing growth of customers. It's needed, just based on usage on our network is growing significantly in the number of customers. For context, the first version of UTOPIA, the biggest core link of our network, was 10 gigabits. We now offer 10 gigabits to the subscriber. And so we are now, upgrading our core links. We have a system that supports 4 terabits per fiber pair, but that's made up of individual links of 100 gig, and now we'll see 400 gig links coming up across that core. So that's exciting. The capabilities of this is all very future-proof. That's just an upgrade of electronics. The fiber investment, which is the lion's share of this, will support 30, 40 years from now as we continue to see technological advances. It all uses the same fiber, and we're demonstrating that with these upgrades we're making, but we'll be able to continue to support that for the foreseeable future. So exciting stuff.
Thanks, Roger. Anything else from the board? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Come on, nobody wants to stay here all day, right? This is too much fun today, apparently.
Don't move, Adam.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll second that. Robin at Centerville.
Thank you, Robin. That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lori. Congratulations, Jason.